Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. On Monday, I made some fettuccine Alfredo, and I'm going to be showing you my favorite Alfredo sauce recipe. It's super simple. So first off, I just start by melting some butter, and then I toss in a couple tablespoons of cream cheese. The recipe calls for garlic powder, but I prefer to use the freshly minced garlic, and I just saute that in the butter for a couple of minutes, and then I add in my heavy cream. And then once my cream cheese is fully melted, I add in the freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and I just stir that into the sauce until it gets melted, and I let that simmer for about 15 minutes while my noodles are cooking. And lastly, I add in some salt and pepper. You definitely don't want to add the salt and pepper too early because it could cause your sauce to break. But once the sauce is done, I just add in my cooked and drained fettuccine noodles, and I just toss that to coat. So simple and easy, delicious, definitely one of my favorites. I served it with a side salad with lettuce, tomato, croutons, and I ended up putting some ranch on it and some garlic bread. Tuesday was my birthday, so I wanted to make one of my favorite dishes, which is chicken and dumplings. I started off with a rotisserie chicken just to save some time, so I took off the skin and I removed it from the bones and just shredded it up. Into my big pot, I'm going to be adding in 10 cups of chicken broth, and then to season it, I'm going to be adding in some lemon pepper, some salt, pepper, garlic powder, basil, and some bay leaves. I just stir that around and I let that come up to a boil. So onto the dumplings. Into this bowl, I'm going to be adding in some flour, salt, and some baking soda. Then I'm just going to give that a good little whisk, and then I'm going to add in my melted butter and some buttermilk. And I just stir that until it comes together. And then I'm just going to be dumping that onto my floured surface, and I'm going to knead that until it comes together. And then I'm just going to take a knife and cut my dumplings, and then I'm just going to drop that into my boiling chicken broth. And I just let those dumplings cook for about 15 minutes, and then I add back in my shredded chicken, and then I get rid of those bay leaves, and I like my chicken and dumplings to be a little bit thicker, so I make this little slurry of buttermilk and cornstarch, and I just add that back into the soup, let it cook for a couple of minutes, and it is done. I have tried so many different chicken and dumpling recipes in the past, and this is by far my favorite. I'm so glad that I came across this recipe, and I will definitely have it linked in the description box for you guys. So I served it with green beans and rolls, and then for dessert, my mom sent me home this red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting, which is my favorite cake. I'm making a lemon chicken and green bean dish. So first off, the recipe called for 1.5 pounds of chicken. I just had 1 pound in my freezer, so I'm just going to make that work. But I diced it up and put it in this little Ziploc bag, and I'm letting it marinate in some rice wine vinegar and some low sodium soy sauce, and I'm going to pop that in my fridge for at least an hour before I get started cooking. But I did cut the marinade in half since I didn't have the full amount of chicken. But I do think that I'm going to keep the honey lemon sauce the same amount because I do have the full amount of green beans, and plus I like my stuff saucy, and it's going to be served over some rice, so yeah. So for the honey lemon sauce that is going to be poured over the chicken and green beans, in that bowl I just have some chicken broth, honey, the juice and zest of 1 lemon, some cornstarch, ground ginger, minced garlic, and some crushed red pepper. So first I just added in some olive oil to my skillet, and I let that heat up. And then I added in all of those green beans. I didn't feel like using a cutting board, so I just used some scissors and it worked. Then I just tossed all the green beans around in that olive oil, and I sprinkled them with a little bit of salt. And these green beans are going to be crunchy, so if you're not into that, this may not be the recipe for you. But I let those cook for about 4 minutes, and then I just removed those to a separate plate. And then I added in some more olive oil, and I just tossed in that marinated chicken with all the leftover marinade. And I just cooked that until it was done, and then I removed it with a slotted spoon onto that plate with the green beans. I poured in my honey lemon sauce, and I did get all that leftover cornstarch that was kind of stuck to the bottom. I just gave that a good stir, and I let it come up to a boil so that it could thicken. It took no time. and then I just added back in the chicken and green beans, and I just tossed everything to coat. I served this over a bed of brown rice. I'm just using the brand from Aldi. It's just the instant kind that takes 10 minutes on the stove. And then I sprinkled it with some sesame seeds. I like this recipe, but I didn't love it because it was just too lemony for me. I would definitely make this again, but I would just cut that lemon juice in half. On Friday, I tried a new recipe out of my Pioneer Woman cookbook for stuffed pizza crust. I definitely ran into some problems, but first I just started with a frozen loaf of bread. It was the Rhodes brand, and I let that set at room temperature on my counter for about 4 hours, covered with that dish towel. I sprinkled it with a little bit of flour because my rolling pin was sticking to it, and I just rolled it out the best that I could. She said that it needed to be about 30 inches long. I tried and tried, but it just kept kind of shriveling back up, so oh well. I drizzled it with some olive oil and some kosher salt and pepper, and then I put on some marinara sauce. Apparently I used too much because I had some problems later. But also, you were supposed to use 10 pieces of string cheese. I could only fit 6 pieces on there. And then I also topped it with some pepperoni. And here is where it got really aggravating and messy. Like I said, I used too much marinara sauce, and I could not close this dough up. You're supposed to close it together and then just kind of pinch it, and then it will stick. But I worked with it for forever, and let me tell y'all, I was about ready to throw this out the window, but I made it work. And I put it on my pizza pan, and I closed the ends together the best that I could. And then I just dabbed this little egg wash on it with just an egg and some water mixed together. And then I baked it at 450 for about 15 minutes, and surprisingly it turned out pretty good. Some cheese did leak out, but I just kind of shoved it back under there and nobody said anything. So it did taste really good. I would definitely make it again, but I would just tweak some things to make it work better. But I just served that with some extra marinara sauce that I heated up. And then on the side here, I got this idea from the Pioneer Woman cookbook as well, and it is salad on a stick. I just kind of wanted to change up our normal salad. And then I drizzled that with some olive oil, and there is lettuce, cucumber, cheese, and tomatoes. Here I am making some Crockpot sloppy joes. So first off, I just browned a pound of ground beef that I seasoned with some onion powder, and then I added in some tomato sauce along with some ketchup and some water. And then I have some brown sugar and flour, mustard, Worcestershire sauce, apple cider vinegar, chili powder, garlic powder, and some salt and pepper. And then I just combined all of that, and I let that cook on low for 4 hours. I just served that on a bun with some cheese, and these were so good. I've made them once before on the stove, and they were great, but they were even better in the slow cooker. On the side, I made some homemade potato wedges. I just cut up some potatoes and baked them in the oven with some olive oil and seasonings, and then when they came out, I sprinkled it with a little bit of parsley, and I served it with a pickle on the side, and that was dinner for Saturday. On Sunday, we went out to eat at Steak and Shake. I got the grilled chicken sandwich with fries with their Parmesan and herb seasoning over the fries. But that wraps up this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.